Good afternoon, and thank you everyone who's here for the session today. This session is on organizing community and campaigns. We have a very wonderful speaker, Priya-Chetty Rajagopal, here with us today. To share a bit about her, Priya is a very well known Bangalore based businesswoman and a CXO search consultant who also focuses on civic causes, heritage, as well as leadership. However, an issue that's extremely close to her heart is that of dog and animal welfare, where she has created a very strong impact as the trustee of the very well known advocacy NGO, the CJ Memorial Trust. Today, Priya will share her journey on how she championed the cause of setting up the State Animal Welfare Board and shed light on how to organize such drives and bring people together to take collective action. Welcome to the session. Before moving on, I'll just make a quick announcement. Please feel free to write all your questions in the prompt box and we will take them towards the end of the session. And with this, I give over to you, Priya. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashita, for that very kind introduction. It's always nice to sort of hear yourself from another perspective. And, as part of YAPO for so many years, I have great regard for all the wonderful things that you do. And I hope this conference brings a lot of information and a lot of ideas to light. But let me sort of get right down to it. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Priya.
Thank you. So what I wanted to jump into was the value of communities. As you know, this has been, I think, the single largest change or the single largest lever that animal welfare has had in the last few years, given the number of different changes that have happened, the ups and downs that go on as far as animal welfare laws, evolving situations, and so on. I am a little limited because of my focus primarily on companion animals. I do not have the breadth of vision or of experience that is required for such a large space like farm animals and others. But I do respect that space a lot while not being conversant. So I would like to put that caveat out that my discussion therefore will be a little limited. The second thing which I would request your pardon is I've just recovered from COVID, so I'm still a little in that space, so bear with me. Now, as far as I want to start with a little bit of my journey. Till about 20 years ago, I mean, I was your average Joe who was probably scared of animals, not really very conversant with with pets, etc. And then one magical day, a little girl called CJ entered my life, and then everything changed. And from there, apart from the obvious falling in love and understanding the beauty and the love and the wonder of a pet and of a family member, there was also some very basic things. And I come from a corporate background where I realized that all of us need to work together to make things happen. And so on my street, there were several people with pets. There were several wonderful street dogs. And all we needed to do was make sure that the dogs were fed. So when we would go for a walk, we would feed the Tony, we would feed Blackie and Kalu and all those. But also when there was an issue, there was a fracture or something, we would take it up. The ABC was done. When Tony had puppies, we knew what to do. So I remember thinking at that time, if on my street, we are managing fine, which means there are no dog bites, there is, neutering, all the dogs are now more or less neutered. They're fed, they're happy. If just all the communities were to do it, all the problems would be stopped and there would just be nothing that we have to worry about. And from that time has been the principle of the community guardians, which is no rocket science, except for the fact that once it is properly, implemented, it can be such a game changer as far as animal welfare is concerned. So let's talk a little bit about what is the need for communities in this space. The first thing is we know that we are a very disparate and diverse animal lover community. Each of us have different goals, different kind of motivations, different levels of information. The second thing is there are basic gaps in information, in laws, and in process. And as individuals, it causes a lot of confusion because we don't know how to navigate, we don't know what is out there, we don't know how to present it to the external party, and so on. And strangely enough, we all have similar or near identical issues that we are dealing with individually, whether it is an accident, whether it is a spay neuter vaccination, whether it is a feeder issue, whether it is escalation on a cruelty. We all go through it. And somehow at every stage, it turns out that we are the only ones who are experiencing it and we're the only ones who need to have it addressed. And this reinventing of the wheel is what makes it critical to come together and build communities. And sometimes, as you know, being alone means starting problems, means uncertainty. And sometimes we just let it go and there's no follow through. And that is, I think, some of the many reasons why the need for a community becomes so critical. And what does it really do? The communities create comfort of like-minded people and groups. It creates centrality and access to information. It allows access to stakeholders, whether it is government or AWBI or your local police or your corporator, in a legitimate, structured manner, because people don't mess with communities. They may mess with a Priya-Chetty Rajagopal, but they may not look at, say, the entire Cunningham canine squad, which is there. There is swift joint action when required, when you're in a community. There is this wonderful concept of groupthink. We are so much better when we think together and we apply ourselves. Ideating and ownership, the number of different ideas that come out when you're a community and when you're not alone is incredible. And these are the ones that create a democratic, collaborative, and a true growth as far as the cause is concerned. And this is something which we, as communities really need to take pride in. Next is how do communities create success is with very strongly a cohesive purpose. There's no point in people having different purposes or having a lack of cohesion in what we want, which is animal welfare or safety of our companion animals, treaties, whatever is our purpose at that point. It's cohesive. So that comes through beautifully. And it also depends on this concept of servant leadership, because there is no leader in a community like this. Somebody is very experienced in information. Somebody is very experienced in how to handle a cruelty issue. Some people work very closely with government, know how to interact as far as spay neuter is concerned. And another thing which really is a key tipping point is the collaborative behavior and the conversation that happens, which means people collectively own an issue or own an outcome. An outcome is an important word we need to focus on when we talk about communities and campaigns. Because if there is no outcome, we spend a lot of time waffling and a lot of time just going back and forth on something which may or may not require that kind of expend of energy and time, which, let us all not forget, that while we may be concerned and very, very passionate about animal welfare, we also have lives where we're working people, we're family, we're parents, or we're caregivers, we're volunteers in other spaces, and so on. So this is critical that we come together and really leverage all information that's available to make sure that we create the maximum impact on outcomes in the minimal possible time and expend of effort. The use of technology and social media is a given as far as communities are concerned. At some point, I will talk about the canine squads and some of the things that we've done using very basic technology. But the coming together is, I think, something that we should all be very grateful for, because the warriors who fought 10 years ago fought very different wars with very different weapons and very different platforms. And it was hard. Things, maybe as far as the law is concerned, hasn't changed that much, but it still has, been a little bit more prevalent, a little bit more endemic, spread a little bit more. And the wonderful thing is the rise of the petisan. This is a beautiful concept, I feel, that has come up. We ran a campaign in Bangalore when our civic authority tried to make sure that we have only one dog per house, which was ridiculous. And the whole of Bangalore came together, really. And it was what we called the rise of the petisan. It is a person who goes beyond their citizenship and understands what it is like to have a pet and to feel that love, that sense of responsibility, whether the pet is in your home or on the street, that was it. So over a period of the last few years, and I want to again place a caveat here that, while I may have had CJ for 13 years of our life, and she passed away. She motivated me. The loss and the grief of that motivated me to set up CJ Memorial Trust to apply in some ways whatever little I had learned, whatever little I had sort of experienced, and try and see if I could extrapolate it. But you must appreciate that I have been not more than 5 or 6 years in this space, and for me, I have only tried to do what I'm good at, which is bring in my own concepts, my own strategic overview, my own ability in terms of the corporate life that I have been in, and I still am in, to be able to add both mind and heart into this space. And I think communities really, so that caveat I would like to leave with you, that I'm very, very small and young in compared to the doyens who are speaking today at FIAPO. But as I said, a little learned, we have learned it fast. The thing is, in this space, what becomes more and more important and more critical for all of us to know is we cannot allow ourselves to be motivated entirely by our hearts. Because I'm not competing with Ashta here saying, oh, I'm kinder than you are, or I'm even more compassionate than you are. That's not the point. The point is how effective you are. I think the fact that we have a heart for animals is a given. So we don't need to be able to preach to the choir about that. What we need to do is how do we move forward? So a long time ago, when I did it, I attended a conference, I think at FIAPO. I remember, telling one of my colleagues there saying that, a bleeding heart doesn't mean a bleeding brain. And that's something we need to remember, because we need to bring our minds to this. The idea is bring your minds and your hearts, be led by your heart, but be, let the process be your mind, so that we're able to get results. Otherwise, we spend a lot of our time in just, there are times when I have seen things that break my heart so much that I'm unable to function for a day. So you literally have to keep a stone on your heart and say, okay, that's all very well. What do I need to do to fix this? What is the outcome I need in order to be truly responsive, responsible, and moving forward on the terrible issue that has happened today or whatever? And we have seen some terrible things. And all of us in this space suffer just because of our love for animals, much more than perhaps I feel that is necessary. So we've had building communities. And, I've been proud of being part of Bangalore, which I think is one of the most foremost cities as far as compassion, as far as good thinking, quick application, moving ahead, branding is concerned. I think Bangalore's done an incredible job. Of course, I'm biased, but I think I can be forgiven for my bias because I've been here forever, a large part of my life. But if you look at the stages that we've gone through, one of the things that have come in because of the development of community and using Facebook communities is, for example, something called Citizens for Animal Birth Control, which was a group that actually on Facebook, a community that started working with the BBNP, working with all different authorities and citizens and the welfare, people in welfare, to make sure that the ABC was taken up a notch. There was communication, there was a ability to collaborate, discuss, escalate problems, bring in better, better scale, better quality of service and care for the animal. We did several others like this, which allowed people to come together and share common issues. So obviously, animal birth control or ABC is a critical part of any city. So that community that started and worked very closely with the civic organization, almost like a public-private partnership, became very, very impactful because it became joint goals. That's when I talk about the purpose and the outcome. As long as you're very clear that this is what you want to achieve, and you want to achieve it along with your partners in government or in the NGO, things kind of work together because you're working backwards from an outcome. And that is something I think really has been a huge learning for me. And I have kind of applied it to wherever I have needed some help so that I can be a little bit more effective and all of us can be more effective. I use the word I as relative for we because all of this is done as a community. But since we're here in this talk, I will obviously refer, say I in a general way. We ran campaigns like Not Without My Dog, when BBMP tried to remove any house that has more than one dog. And it was one of the most successful campaigns because it involved the government, the welfareists, the city. It involved every form of civic protest that you can possibly imagine. But it came together with different communities, disparate communities, but all bound by one goal, that I will not without my dog. That was the calling campaign, and that became one of the biggest, call to arms, literally in Bangalore. And not only were we successful, it was. I'm putting it very simply because it was a very, very arduous battle. There was a PIL that was put in, and many PILs actually. But it was the first time that a civic organization not just asked for a change in the law that they had tried to put in, but they withdrew it in total. So that is the power of the community. That is the power of a set of people who say, don't mess with us and don't mess with our dogs. We also worked on something called the ban online pet sales, when we found dogs being sold as young as 20 days by completely unscrupulous breeders using sites like Quicker and India Mart and many others. And that campaign was run in Bangalore, but soon went across the country, basically to stop online marketing of dogs. And that went on several layers, which was as a petition, online petition, finally almost went into a PIL. And with people working with what laws were to make sure it was maximized, leveraged, and people understood what was required. And we're very happy now that to say that over a period of time, with our huge intervention, with the fact that AWBI jumped in on a very strong support, that today you cannot sell pets online. And this is again a community-led campaign that came from pain, but was very, very good. Tagging dogs, we just said that we had a sign off which said dog tagged, not dog gone. No more lost dogs. It was such a simple campaign. We have given away more than 16,000 small plastic tags costing hardly a few rupees each. But just getting people to say, put your name and your phone number on a dog. In case your dog gets lost, I know who to call. 17,000 tags is what we've given away. And we are running this for the last 4 years. And I think that it's been a huge impact as far as, lost dogs in Bangalore. So these are, again, some campaigns which are individual, but very, very, may seem very small, but we have been able to save, I think, a lot of heartache. There have been, stuff that we've done around the rabies helpline, one of the first. It's probably the second in India that has come up. It's been an amazing experience where Bangalore's come together to make sure that something is intervened on such a critical issue to save human lives. And Indie Proud is a campaign that we have started with the BBMP, and it's on slow right now, but it is basically branding, working not with the supply of Indian dogs, which means that you're looking at spay, neuter, and controlling the population. You're talking about branding the Indian dog where the demand for Indies go up. And we all know that Indies are the new cool. So we've worked with on many different fronts to make that possible. And of course, Adopt, Don't Shop. So Indie Proud is something which is not only tagged, but it's also trademarked, which is a lovely little logo. And I hope that goes really well in the next year or so, because it's a great way to sort of anchor people to understand that this is our dogs. These are our responsibility and our love. And so many people now are sort of falling in with that. And that again is a community enterprise. So I'll quickly talk about two things, and you'll have to tell me how we're doing on time. I'll try and do this in the next 5-6 minutes. I'll talk about the State Animal Welfare Board, not because we had, of course, we all had something to do with it. But again, I want to come back to the fact that we work very hard, but without a clear goal orientation, a clear path of how are we going to get there, what will make it easier, what are the levers we need to put on and off in order to make that impact, to make our life easier. We sometimes stumble because it's very hard. Navigation is very hard. And believe me, working with government can be one of the most painful things, but sometimes can be actually something which is so rewarding, because many times we've had government who've been more than helpful in terms of partnering when they understand that we mean well and it's something that they can that will benefit them as well. In fact, we say with the BBMP here, we were one of the first, I think, cities to actually give an appraisal to our civic authority to be able to say that here, these are 20 great things you did, and by the way, here are 5 things you still need to improve. And it made a lot of difference because, I don't think people do this too often. You appraise your own civic authority, to on animal welfare. And we're very lucky. We've had a wonderful commissioner at that time called Randeep, who gave us a lot of support. Everybody in Bangalore really benefited from his focus on animals and his compassion. The State Animal Welfare Board is a critical structure for us to be able to implement cruelty or implement animal welfare, prevention of cruelty, and implement animal welfare. And strangely enough, most states don't seem to have one. Without the State Animal Welfare Board, you cannot in cascade set up an SPCA. So your whole structure of implementing animal welfare across the state becomes ad hoc, knee-jerk, and pointless. So which means every single time you are doing the same thing again and again. And as I said, remember, a bleeding heart does not mean a bleeding brain. So what we all tried to do was, how do we get this going? There was a board which was completely redundant, completely unfunctional. And, most of these boards are actually deliberately run down so that, nothing happens and nobody has to work. And there was petition after petition. We used the government, we used the BBMP, we used governors to make sure that, our need for that was amplified. We had 2 or 3 online petitions. And finally, the BBMP wrote a letter to the government saying, we need this in order to implement the laws, please have it done. And it took us 2 years. And finally, in November of 2019, thanks to all the work that has been put in and CUPA's tremendous, CUPA, had put in a public interest litigation for the setting up of a State Animal Welfare Board. And finally, it was set up. And then started the other process, of course, of setting up the 31 district SPCAs for Karnataka, and then making the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board understand what was it that needed to be done. So I would give out lists of points, and we were literally, because it's a difficult situation. You have the Animal Husbandry Department, which is looking at husbandry, commercial, livestock, and suddenly you're saying you're in charge of animal welfare. So it's been hard. So we tried very hard to work with them in terms of at least working in collaboration rather than pointing fingers and saying, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And we're very grateful that subsequently we managed to get the SPCAs also in place. Now, these were the communities that came across across Bangalore when they understood this had to be done. Our work would be easier if we had this in place. So that went ahead. So I think that Bangalore pushed this with collaboration, working with groups across the country, trying to make sure that we are able to apply what had been learned, say, in Dehradun to Bangalore, what had been learned in Pune, in Thane, in Chennai. So we were able to, sort of take together best practices and put it in. And thanks to FIAPO as well, who allowed us to make sure that we had a few things in place. And the good news was we also had access to legal teams. So we set up a little group called ALT, which is Animal Lawyers Trust, where we could pool in lawyers' inputs and for small things like, apartment association is trying to kick out somebody with a dog. So we were able to, again, create templates that made things work, and that was really, really a big thing. So the State Animal Welfare Board, till today, it's just been 2 years. So there's a lot of work that is going on, but now we've also set up the first 24/7 animal helpline. In the sense, the government has set it up, which is a still work in progress. It's still beta, but it's the first time it's been done. And I think they should be commended for the fact that they've pushed themselves with communities like ours, harassing them every now and then to do this. I'd like to quickly move on to the rise of the squads. Coming back to communities, and we talked very, very strongly about what communities need to do. Going back to what I said about, saying that if I, in my road, can manage a little bit of the neuter, the taking care of the dogs, the feeding, why couldn't we just do this? So my idea was, if we set up something called a hyper-local squad, which means I only handle my area. So let us assume I come from an area called Vasant Nagar or Fraser Town. I set up a group, which is only going to focus on things on that area. and set up a admin group, which kind of serves as a hub and spoke model, right? So the spokes are all these squads which come up very organically. And if there's something that belongs to another area, like Whitefield, they put it in the admin group and then somebody posts it there, or they put it in Facebook and somebody posts it there. So it becomes easier to handle. We don't have to discuss the Yulin Dog Meat Festival in Frasertown. We need to discuss what's happening to little Tommy, who has, for the second time, got injured, or a apartment association which has refused to allow somebody with a dog to be there, or a situation where there is so many unneutered dogs that we need to fix it quickly. So Frasertown can handle that, or Indranagar squad can handle their areas. They can work with their human communities to make sure that the dogs are safer. So the idea of these squads was to make sure that people don't focus only on animals and community animals, but also on the human community. The idea was to keep the human community safe by ensuring there was high ABC, high anti-rabies vaccination rounds. So the human community was safe. Therefore, they were more invested, and therefore being able to do more supportive of those people in the squad. So that became a big advantage because we were not only animal focused, we were also human focused. It came through. We were building communities within. So we had vets, we had access to police, the corporator, the local Rotary, and everyone else that we needed to in that community to make us successful. So today you have people who do their own fundraising. In fact, our Frasertown group beautifully put together a calendar, and they raised almost 50,000 rupees for their own rescues and and adoptions, and that's been fantastic. So the beauty of this is the independence, the interdependence, the individual unique character, and the fantastic focus on both human and animal communities. Because unless you focus on human communities, you're going to be preaching to the choir. There's just no point. So, that's a lot to discuss, and I'm a little bit beyond my time space. I'm sorry about that, Ashita. But I would like to just, before I hand it over to you for your queries, is to say how important it is for organizations like FIAPO to be the aggregator for so many different initiatives. Because one of the things that we really lack is lack of information on laws, on gazetted notifications, on how it applies to us, what the police's role is, whether we can demand or whether we request, or we just have to keep quiet about a few things, So those kind of things. And I also feel that this is the time for us as citizens, as petizens, to be responsible as petizens, which means we leash our dogs when we go out, we pick up poop, we behave like good, responsible petizens where our animals are welcome in the community, whether it is our streeties, whether it is our pets, they should be welcome. That is a goal. And then what a happy community and happy set of communities or a happy city we can have. So remember what Helen Keller said, Ashta, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. And there are times, I'm not going to deny that when you have to move quickly or there is something that needs to be done, the old African proverb says, if you want to go quickly, sometimes you do need to go quickly. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And right now, with communities, with campaigns, with a wild space ahead of us, with intelligent, fantastic people, big hearts, smart minds, people who want so much to have the right outcomes, how can we not go anywhere else but far and together? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priya, for taking us through the details of organizing community and campaigns. The points that you mentioned are of significant value and so many practice that we can actually implement. But without further ado, let's begin the Q&As with the questions we have here. So let's start with the first one. So as a civic leader who has worked on city issues, women's leadership, heritage, you talk about the purity of purpose being the critical base. Can you tell us a little bit more on that?
Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, I've talked about purity of purpose several times. In fact, I've done a TED talk on that. And I'm very conscious, Ashita, when I say that it sounds like almost like I'm trying to be saint-like or, purity of purpose. But sometimes things that are beautiful and meant do sound bigger and more inspirational than perhaps small people like us deserve to say or can really feel. But purity of purpose is something which is so critical and so important and so much of so central to what we do that I will respond to why it is required. Now, let us assume that you and I are working together on something and you have the right reasons, right, to be able to want to move forward. Now, we were part of, for example, of something called the Steel Flyover Beta movement, which was trying to stop nonsensical infrastructure coming in and destroying our city. So I was one of the founders of that. Now, the reason that we were part of it was because we couldn't bear to see what was happening to our city, of breakdown, of destruction of trees, of atmosphere, of this crunching traffic. So we were heartbroken about what could happen to the city that we loved so much. So I may have been a corporate person. Somebody else was, an actor. Somebody was an architect. Somebody else was a dancer. Somebody was, a doctor. It didn't really matter. The purpose was one, but the purity, which meant there was nothing else. There was no interest in saying, hey, listen, I'm actually doing this because I want to go against the political party at the current situation, or that I want to do this because, I want to see my name up in lights, or, because it's something which I'm very selfishly concerned about. It doesn't affect the city. The moment there was, of course, let us assume the purpose was singular. But if the purpose was not pure, the way you look at us as a number of different magnets that are coming together, right? When those magnets come together, when there's purity, they come together and they move in the same direction. But if they are not, you will find things pulling away this way or that, and it doesn't work. And it is actually 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I'm conscious of the numbers that I mentioned, because yes, you still move 1 step forward, but you are moving 1 step back. Having said that, unless there is purity, you cannot trust anybody else. So what happens is, let us assume that I work in a certain way, right? I have a way which uses more digital trends, or I work with a little bit more, a different set of people. You have a different way of working. You're far more hands-on. You're far more, you prefer to work with your hands, and you don't believe in digital. So you do different things. So I'm not here to tell you what to do, because our purpose is the same. And as long as there is purity of purpose, there is no question that the outcomes that we both seek will be the same and will be achieved. You will do it your way. I will do it mine. And look at the beauty that comes together in diversity of these approaches, points of view, approaches for getting things done. And that is the magic of true community and collaboration. So not only must I have purpose, but there must be purity in it. And even if we are uncomfortable with the use of the word purity, we must internalize it and accept it. Because I can tell you this, and I would say this with great regret. There are times when, I've gone into another campaign, and then, something has happened, or there's been an irritation, or there's been, sometimes crossed wires when 2 people don't get along and things like that. And the moment you're doing things which are not entirely for the campaign, but, either to cover your back or to stop somebody from, getting in your space and irritating you, you can feel the way things start slackening up. It's like the universe knows that you're no longer doing this for the reason you set out to do. So it's important for us as parts of the community, as servant leaders in the community, to constantly question not only the purpose, but the fact, are we doing this, with the idea we set out to? Is it as pure as it was originally? And believe me, those are the ones, Ashita, which are long-lasting, which create impact, and always leave you with that feeling of such grateful, humble, I can't use the word victory, but, of achievement. So that, in a long-winded way, is purity of purpose. And I hope most of us in animal welfare have it. And when we don't, we need to question. We need to be truthful. We need to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, I'm not doing this just because I care for animals. I'm really doing this because I want to show Arshita that I'm better than she is. We have a problem. So purity of
Absolutely.
purpose. Yeah, purity of purpose is
Yes.
critical.
I also strongly believe that when we understand the depth of our actions, it also helps us moving forward and ahead with the purpose and purity at heart.
Yes.
So thank you, Priya, for sharing the answer with us. The next question that we have here is that what are the biggest successes through community effort?
Uh, I would actually, there are several, Arshita. I mean, some of which I've already sort of gone through with you, which is, the launch of the Indie Proud, the work that has been done. And this is, when I say this, I'm the face that you're seeing, but actually this is all of Bangalore that has worked on it, through all the different communities that have come together. So the campaigns have been small, big, medium. For example, we've done even smaller things like Santa Bawa every year, where we work with children to make sure that they know how to deal with dogs and how to approach them, etc. This was triggered by a very strange incident in the Cub and Dog Park when a small child was getting very, very frisky and was going to adopt a dog, and came from the back and sort of hugged the dog, and the dog had just been neutered, so was sick, probably in pain, and bit the child. And after that, we said we will do everything we can to make sure that all the children that we can access will learn how to deal with kids, with other dogs, with spaces around dogs, etc. So there were two other aspects to it. Apart from safety, it also had kids who wanted to work or wanted to be with dogs but didn't know how, and also increased the kind of adoption, and which was also a very good thing. So these are also campaigns that we've been part of. The most recent one, and the one that we are very, very very gung ho about, is the one with trying to get the squads to really ace absolute independent, completely self-sufficient functioning, so that the issues of cruelty, feeding, adoption, rescue, injury, human community looking after, making sure laws are handled, creating a community where animals are welcome, where all this goes into another level and more things can be done. Now, many of these squads, for example, are undertaking adoptions. In fact, we're doing one with Whitefield tomorrow. And, the people are encouraged to adopt from their own area also, and it's so sweet to see all these things happening. And this is not happening because I'm thinking about it. It's because the communities come up with some amazing ideas. And at the end of it, there's a structure, there's a brand. We've created a lovely brand around the community, the canine squads, which is a 4-square kind of thing where each, like if you look at the screen behind me, you'll see the canine squads, the four colors. So the squads all have their own, little mascot, their own name. So it's a Jayanagar Canine Squad or the Indranagar Canine Squad. Each one has their own logo and their own look and feel. And many of them have their own Facebook page, their own Instagram page. So you are allowing technology and social media to add color and life and veracity to this. Then we also work on campaigns like, doing CD and ABC vaccinations, working with the BDNP for our area to try and get, say a rabies vaccination set going, or on a special adoption drive. So there are so many things. And then even with stores in our area, then we try and encourage them to spend a little bit of money on the streeties. We try and get the corporates to be a little bit more encouraging, because when we are in that area, at the end of it, when I go to a sari shop where they have not been kind to their animal, I'm not going to go and visit them again. But when they support our animals, and we've got lovely stories, and we can tell you in the last 1 year of squads, lovely stories of the people that have come up, stepped up, done stuff. Oh, it has been an absolute joy to see. And today there is a store in Bangalore which, did was very uncomfortable, but finally adopted the dog that sort of crawled into its basement. And today we're one of the biggest customers for that shop because we love the fact that they have heart. We're encouraging people, communities, and organizations in communities, whether they're shops or restaurants, to behave like, community members in their care for dogs, in their affection for dogs, to know what the laws are, that they cannot relocate an animal, that they cannot stop a feeder. But if there's an issue, we also help on that. So there are so many campaigns. I don't want to start and bore you, Ashita, but I mean, if you go up to our site, it has been very reactive. Something comes up, we just go ahead and jump into it. But the only way we've been successful is because the communities are so brilliant, so attuned to their own, their own energies, and they just think, let's jump in, feet first, let's just do it. And I need to add one more thing. So this is the most serious part of the campaigns. Now, as you know, when COVID happened, we had a huge issue. So the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board was absolutely timely because there we could use the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board. It started in November 2019. In 2020, you know what happened. So we were able to use the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board to ensure that veterinary services were declared essential. By the way, it was not. Ensuring fodder and food that were allowed to be used. People were allowed, the NGOs and shelters were allowed to be operational, and that people were allowed to take animals with special permission if they were sick or injured. Now, this may seem very minor, and also to ensure that feeders were allowed to use certain times to go out and feed their dogs. So this, if you ask me, is a very serious upside of what communities can do. And coming back to the State Animal Welfare Board, which people said, but I don't know what it really does. As an aggregator and as a platform, it's very powerful. And we have a long way to go, but hey, we've made a start somewhere. So sorry I took a little bit more time on that question.
That's all right, Priya. That was a great answer. And thanks for shedding light on that. The next question was with regard to the State Animal Welfare Board. So how did you actually mobilize the government to start the SAWB, and what were the steps that you and your community took? Basically, how did you engage with the government stakeholders as well?
So, Ashita, this is where I roll my eyes, because I can tell you that it was arduous, to say the least. Unfortunately, I'm not blessed with a very good temper. I tend to be very, very short-tempered when I get pushed to the wall. But if I've learned patience, I've learned patience here. So when these push for the State Animal Welfare Board started, was triggered from me, because when the dog breeding and marketing rules came in and we were trying to ban online pet sales and regulate breeders, the mechanism to do so was the State Animal Welfare Board, and there was none. We didn't know where to start. So we wrote to AWBI, we questioned, we went and met government. And just for your information, I'm not sounding like I'm cribbing, we went through in the last, from 2018, I think, to now 4 years, we have gone through 3 animal husbandry ministers, 4 commissioners, 5 directors, and 7 secretaries. Now, animal husbandry will not be something which is very high on somebody's radar. So when somebody comes in, they do what they can in that space. I'm not casting any blame. I understand that this is the government, it's hard. But you can imagine what it was like to go every single time to go and explain to an organization which primarily looks at animals from a commercial point of view and say, hey, this is what needs to be done. And then answer the other simple question, but why? It was uphill. The thing was just to make sure that we all as a group engaged with whoever we could to make that impact. So the stakeholders were the following. We actually used our local civic authority, which is BBMP. to help them understand that if they don't push, the pressure of all this comes on them. They don't have either the ability or the wherewithal or the legal right to be able to do what the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board would do. So we actually harnessed the powers of the PVMP. We spoke extensively to the media. We went on change.org. I have 3 petitions which we put down saying, not just for Karnataka, all India, saying, please get this going, because there was no other way we could get the breeders down or regulate the breeders or stop online pet sales, because there was no mechanism to do so. And then was with the conversations with the governments, the government parties. And of course, Animal Welfare Board was very useful. They tried their best, but at the end of it, you realize that we are practically in India, I think there must be about 8 or 9 functioning state animal welfare boards. The rest of them are all dysfunctional or non-existing. And unless that is there, they don't set up the district SPCAs for each of the districts in their own state. So we've got 31 districts which have to be covered. So these were the stakeholders that we dealt with, Ashita, and we also moved very closely with, of course, the animal welfare community in trying to make people understand that we have to engage and ask for this. So like SAWB came in everywhere, and the change.org petitions, I must say, did make a difference because it served as an aggregator and as a common platform for us to be able to state our demands. So it was easier for people to relate to why it was required, and for us to use that to be able to engage with all the different people who had to set it up. Finally, as you said, legal always works. And it was CUPA that filed the PIL that made it happen. So you can see from my conversation that the numbers of people involved in this were huge. The numbers of stakeholders, whether it is media, activists, government, NGOs, and legal, were really diverse. But this is what I mean about saying when you have an outcome, you will find all the necessary paths to make sure that they all start converging to achieve the goal. But Ashita, I can tell you, when I spoke to my 4th animal husbandry secretary, I mean, my chin was on the ground. I can tell you, because it is impossible, to going and meeting government. And honestly, we all have lives. And most people don't seem to realize that because we are concerned about animal welfare, we don't have all the time in the world. We are also working people. We also have families. But a lot of it was done virtually. And at the end of it, we have to appreciate the few good government people who gave us the support, and not gave us, did what was needed to make sure things happen. And I believe it's work in progress right now.
Thank you so much, Priya, for sharing the answer to that question. That was quite insightful. Moving ahead, let's move on to the next question we have here. How do you look for opportunities to collaborate? And how to pitch for collaboration with others and make it happen?
I go back, Ashita, to the question of purity of purpose. Are we all here doing the same thing? Do we all want the same goal? Are we here to make the animal haters look bad? What are we here for? So you will find, most of people who are concerned about animals or about feeding or about their own pets or about, worrying about breeders, etc., they normally come together on platforms like Facebook or, for example, we have a lovely dog park in Bangalore, which is the Cubbon Dog Park. Many people come there. So there are ample opportunities for building communities. And the squads became a huge one because it, allowed people, especially indie parents, we're very happy when we get indie parents in our squads, to come together and gel. But how do you collaborate is by having like-minded people. I'm not likely to make a very good community when I have 2 breeders in my community, right? Because they love dogs too. I'm not saying that they don't. But their perspective, their integrity is entirely different from ours. And we do not believe in anything else except adopt, don't shop. So common purpose and common integrity becomes critical. Like-minded, common purpose, and a certain amount of warmth. Ashita, I think this whole thing of serious, solemn, things that we all do are overrated. We've got to have a good sense of humor and giggle once in a while, because otherwise we will just implode with the kind of pain we carry around on a daily basis. I mean, I just saw yesterday, some of the things that we see on a daily basis are nothing short of heartbreaking. So a community that can also laugh together, celebrate together. We've had such a wonderful thing happening recently when one of our dogs got adopted against all odds. And we've had, in the last, say, 6 months, we've had three adoptions of three-legged dogs. It makes me so proud because how much people are doing. These are the things that we must take to our hearts and allow ourselves to feel happy about. Because unless we celebrate, we can never lift ourselves from the heartbreak that we find ourselves in. So a sense of humor, common purpose, integrity, and looking for the right people and holding on to them. And there is no leader. I mean, I come in, I call myself a cheerleader in many of the groups. I come in and I'm so impressed with some of the things that are happening. I shout once in a while saying, what the hell, this is going on. But it's people and the things they do, which is so incredible. And those people, eventually, they're the flag bearers that make a city like Bangalore just plain proud.
Absolutely. The purity is at the core of it at the end of the day. Let's move on to the next question we have here. We are also running out of time, so I'll just take this last question.
Yes.
What, according to you, is the future of community engagement in animal welfare?
It is the only way. Ashita, there's no question. This is the only way. Animal welfare is from a general point of view or from a country's perspective. We may talk about compassion and how critical it is for us to do the right thing and constitution, etc. But it's a seriously unsexy topic. Nobody wants to get involved. But if you talk about X or Y, which is, or e-vehicles, that's different. So unless you look at the singularity of 3 or 4 things that need to be done. One is the laws. And luckily, we are moving forward slowly but inexorably. The gazetted notification. So the structure of animal welfare is starting to come together. Is it perfect? Not at all. But I think we've got to stop cribbing about what is not and appreciate what is. Very, very important for us to take that stance. Because the cribbing I see drives me nuts. Structure, law, what do you call it? Dissemination across the states. Creating information pools so people have access to what are the laws, what one needs to do, templates, best practices. So these are things that are written in stone. Tomorrow, maybe the cruelty law will become 10,000 rupees. And it'll be a slightly bigger dent in what really breaks our heart. But we would have made progress. But the real thing is to stop something from happening. In order to have this cascade make true impact or have any relevance, there is no question about the fact that we have to, without doubt, work as and with communities. One is because it's the most decentralized way of working rather than a top-down approach. It is democratic. It is highly agile, engaging. Each group works very different in personality, and that's fine. You will find a very shy, very quiet person who leads one community and somebody else who does. It does not matter. And the next week they're off for their higher studies, somebody else takes over. Why? Because there is a purpose which is driving them, which is for that community of humans and animals to be safe, right? So from as far as I'm concerned, I will just echo what Margaret J. Atwood said, that there's no power of change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. And when we discover it and we discover the beauty of it together, we create such beauty, we create such love, and we create such warmth and willingness and such a enabling and nurturing environment that allows us to succeed. And we never, ever should preach to the choir. There's no point in me telling you, Archita, what to do with animal welfare. I've got to make it relevant to a majority of people who don't get it, but who will get it when it is applicable to them. When I say, listen, I'm making this place safe for you, they'll be happy. There will be no rabid dogs in the community because we're doing rabies vaccinations. There will be no more puppies. They're happy. So these are things that work. So I would say that there's no question about the community being the only way and the engagement being the only way of making lasting and deep impact for animal welfare in the country. And I will leave you also with the thought of Jean Vanier, which is one of the marvelous things about community, is that it enables us to welcome and help people in a way we couldn't do as individuals. And you see the magic happening every single day. So I hope that answers your question, Ashita.
Absolutely. You have explained it beautifully, Priya. And thank you for shedding light on so many numerous aspects of this session. And I must say that there are so many key takeaways from it. We are at the end of the session and we have reached the time. Thank you, Priya, and everybody who has joined here with us today and for your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashita.